mentioned that you were recommending a I'm going to call this morning's meeting of the Benton County Board of Commissioners to order at 9:02 a.m. And the first order of business is introductions. I'm Zan Ojero, Chair.
Pat Malone, Commissioner.
Nancy Wise, Vice Chair.
Rachel McEnany, County Administrator.
And in the audience, we usually do a round of introductions. So Peggy, we'll start with you. Executive Director of Community Services Consortium, your community action agency.
Ryan Vogt, Executive Director for the Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments.
I'm Michael R. with the Benton Soil and Water Conservation District.
Hi, April Holland, Interim Health Department Director.
Corey Brogan, Benton County Public Information.
Thank you. Online.
Jeff Van Arsdal, Benton County Sheriff.
Thank you very much. And just a reminder to please turn off your cell phones if you have on, silence them, and we have no public comment today because this is our information sharing session. But I do ask that if you are speaking to us and at the table, please position the microphone close to your mouth because otherwise it doesn't pick up very well. And turn it on by pressing the button and it will show red up at the top. Thank you very much. And we will now review and approve the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, consider the agenda approved and we'll move on into our work session, beginning with the updates from Community Services Consortium and Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments. And Peggy, you're up first, or both of you can welcome to come to the table.
Good morning, folks. Again, Peggy McGuire, Executive Director of Community Services Consortium. And I am going to just apologize in advance by saying I've sent out our annual impact report. I'm assuming that you've seen it. And if not, you'll see our fabulous video version on the website. So that gives a synopsis of what that is. So today I'm going to just talk about a few other things. This is Passover week, so I have Passover metaphors in my mind. And on the Seder plate, we have haroset, which represents the mortar that holds the stones together as the slaves were building the pyramids and all the other things they were working on. And that's kind of how I think of CSC, is the mortar that holds a lot of things together. And we're part of the foundation of the social services for the county and for the region that we represent. And so I'm going to just give you a little bit of an update beyond what's in the impact report and beyond hopefully what you hear at our governing board meetings where you all are often present. And that way it's not too much of a repeat of what you always hear. So I'll give you a quick update on the continuum of care. I have met with HUD and they are not going to have a NOFO for continuum of care funding in the upcoming year. So they're going to go ahead and allow us to kind of officially register, or maybe I should say unofficially register. And we'll be working with them, and they have a technical assistance team that they will appoint to us and to the Portland HUD field office to begin working on helping us extricate from the rock. They'll give technical assistance to the rock too. And they will begin working with us to make sure we have all the things in place, which we do: the homeless management information system, the coordinated entry system. And we will, at CSC, we're actually in the process of doing interviews and checking references for a couple of interviewees for the position that will really stand up the continuum in our region. And that person will work very closely with the HUD TA folks and with all of the different partners and all the different communities, and with the team that's at the Rock, and begin to divide us out and get our committees stood up. So we're going to need to have like a homeless and runaway youth committee. We'll have to have a DEI committee. We'll have a committee that rates and ranks proposals. We'll have an HMIS committee. So there's a lot of foundational work that goes into creating that continuum of care. And that's the work, the really hard work that's going to start right now. And then in a couple of years, when HUD puts out their NOFO, we will officially compete as our Tri-County Continuum. Somewhere along the way, they'll give us a new name, something probably really sexy like HUD 507 or something like that. But we can name ourselves whatever we want to call ourselves. As you know, the Rural Oregon Continuum of Care, or ROC, is the 26 county balance of state continuum. The Marion and Polk Continuum calls themselves the Mid-Willamette Valley Homeless Alliance. And we can figure out some kind of a cool name for ourselves in the Tri-County region. But that work is really starting in earnest now. And then the other piece that's kind of related to that, because I think of all of this as a continuum of services. The other work that we're doing is we have general housing assistance program funding for capacity building. And that's something that CSC heard loud and clear from partners in the community, that they want to be positioned to take advantage of any type of funding that comes out for affordable housing development, in particular service-enriched housing. So CSC applied for capacity building funds to begin a training program and to begin to develop some collaborations. I think of it kind of as speed dating, matching housing development folks with service folks to figure out how we can best get that housing piece connected to the service piece to create supports for the folks who will live in the housing. And those partnerships are important to have going forward, because in the funding that becomes available, particularly at the state level, all of the pieces are required to be in place when you apply for the funding. So this capacity building work will be to get people ready to get ready. We will have Corporation for Supportive Housing helping us as a technical assistance provider, and we'll provide trainings and we'll provide information. So this will be everything from people who are interested in, gee, I think I might want to do some housing development, to we've done some housing development and it's been a long time and there are probably things that have changed. What's changed? How can we work better together? And then hopefully toward the end of that 2-year grant, we will have a summit for all the folks who are interested in that. So I've been making the rounds, talking to partners who are potentially interested, and getting them ready to come to those convenings. We have a little bit of funding for stipends for groups that the community would like to see really become engaged in that affordable housing development. So there are organizations like Casa Latinos Unidos that would like to take advantage of potential development opportunities, but they haven't started that work yet. And so this is the opportunity for them to come and learn about that. The other thing that we're standing up right now is the Community Action Partnership of Oregon, the state trade association for community action agencies, became a grantee for a diaper distribution project. And they were the recipients for a statewide distribution of literally hundreds of thousands of diapers. And while that doesn't sound very big, it's huge because people can't get diapers with most of the funding that they receive, like SNAP benefits or WIC. And diapers are expensive. And it's amazing the research that's out there that shows that providing people with diapers keeps the babies cleaner. And when they're cleaner, they sleep better. And when they sleep better, the moms and dads sleep better. And when the moms and dads sleep better, there's less adversity in the household. People aren't snapping at one another because they're sleep deprived. The children are healthy. There's less engagement with the child welfare system. And the cascading impacts of that have been studied, and literally for the investment of diapers, you have thousands and thousands of dollars of savings in the community in a variety of different ways. So CSC is one of the recipients of the diaper fund. And it's actually not a fund, it's diapers. Literally, they delivered pallets and pallets of diapers to us. And we're beginning the distribution of those diapers with the families that we're already working with. And then hopefully, as we begin to kind of get our feet under us with the program, because it's very administratively burdensome, we have to do a lot of tracking about how we're following those diapers and the outcomes for the families. Then we will begin to slowly roll that out in a more broad way to partner organizations. So the kind of the wrap up that I have for you is we're starting this upcoming fiscal year with doing a lot of work with collaborating with partners. Our friends at the COG and partners of the COG are one of the main groups that we're collaborating with, but I'm also signing some new contracts with some of our culturally specific organizations, Casa Latinos Unidos, the NAACP, and the Corvallis Multicultural Literacy Center, to ensure that we have that diverse voice at our Community Action Advisory Council meetings, and giving us advisement of what the community and the constituency that they represent need, so that we are serving our folks in a culturally appropriate way with the services that they need, and considering their needs as we move forward and develop programs like the diaper distribution program and like a variety of these other housing opportunities. So hopefully that's new information that you didn't get too much of a repeat, and happy to answer any questions if you have any questions.
Other questions for Peggy?
Right.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Very excited about all of the work that you're doing in the housing and family stability arena. Ryan.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you so much for having me. For the record, Ryan Vogt, Executive Director for Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments. And I am hopeful that you all have received your annual report from the Council of Governments. We do it in paper. Unlike Peggy, I have a little bit more of a radio face and a radio voice, so we try to do stuff in print instead of a cool video. But, you know, maybe I'll be coaxed out of my shell for a video in the future. We'll see. Or maybe I'll just do the voiceover in the background. That'll work too. So in the last couple of years, I've been bringing the annual report to you, and I don't normally want to take a lot of time here to digest that report or do a lot of responsiveness to it. I'm always open to questions as it relates to it. But I want to point out a couple of things that I'm extremely proud of. One of them is this beautiful financial empowerment program we have, this the Stand By Me program. When I first came to the organization in the middle of 2020, this had been kind of a seedling of an idea that had been bouncing around for several years. And to be candid, it was not getting very much care and feeding. It was kind of bouncing around in the backgrounds. It was a secondary thought. It was not getting very much sunlight, and it definitely was not getting watered. And After I came on board, we received some additional nudging and championing from Commissioner Ojero. And that has become really this kind of beautiful plant now. It's growing into something pretty amazing. The numbers are still relatively small as this continues to grow, but we have, because of that additional support, and we moved it to a place in the organization that had some more energy around it. But because of the care and feeding that it's had over the last couple of years, we now have coaches in all 3 counties. We have bilingual coaches. We have a number of people who are benefiting from this program. It's not income capped. It's not, there's no barriers for people to come in and get some additional coaching about how it is that they can improve their credit score, save for the future, reduce debt. And it's great. It's kind of one of these beautiful little ripples in that every time we do one of these coaching sessions or we do a larger session with a handful of people, then the demand starts to go up. And I think every time that we are impacting somebody to take charge of their own finances for a better future, that in turn really pays off for all of us. So I know I've said it many times behind closed doors, but I want to say it again very publicly. Commissioner Ojero, thank you for your support and your additional help to keep that program moving, because it really is a wonderful program now, and I think it's going to pay for years to come.
Thank you. And I'm also glad to hear that there has been some investment from Lincoln County, and hopefully that will continue, as well as hopefully we'll get some investment from Lynn County in the program. And I know that we don't contribute very much, but it's just enough for matching funds for those other grantors to consider.
Yes, thank you very much. I do want to announce today, several of you know, but I want to make sure to announce this. We do finally have a new Community and Economic Development Director. And her name is Jacqueline Disney. I tried to bring her with me today. And yes, she is part of the long line of Disney families, but she gets that question all the time. She's apparently on a splinter side that went the other direction. So usually when people meet her, the first question they ask is, can she get free tickets? And her answer is always no. But she's a wonderful addition. She's making an impact in incredible ways already. It was a painful wait to go an entire year of doing double duty and 3 failed recruitments, but it is clear that there was an alignment in the universe and there was a reason for all of those recruitments, because she's just wonderful. And you just heard from my esteemed colleague, Peggy, Jacqueline in California. She also ran a community action agency as one of her endeavors. Her most recent endeavor before coming on board was as part of an organization that was the first organization to put up a 3D printed home on the West Coast. So she did a lot of work with housing, particularly in the wildfire affected areas of California. So it's just another wonderful addition to the organization and to our partnership with Community Services Consortium as we both try to figure out how we help the community, and housing is certainly one of the largest needs. And so there may be some creative solutions that come further up. And then one other thing that we've added to our footprint, I've been talking about this for a while, and I'm glad to see that it's finally kicked off. And that is we've begun a grants program, particularly to try and help the smaller communities throughout the region who don't have the infrastructure in-house to really fund a full-time grants writer. And the vision around this was that we were going to bring several people on board, that we were going to rent them out to the smaller communities at a shared cost. And then as grants were awarded, we would assist with administering those grants. And at some point in time, that money would create an evergreen turnover. So always we could handle that, that load. Well, that load is picking up very quickly. The appetite was definitely there. And we have our very first grant writer on board. I will get her in front of the council or the commissioners as well here in the near future. But she's an experienced grant writer. And right now, what she is garnering a lot of interest in is large scale safe streets for all. And I don't know if she's looking at one project right now or two, but the interest throughout the region is pretty incredible. So she's looking at applying for a regional planning grant that will really travel the entire 101 corridor on the coast. And then she's looking at another one that will look at Highway 20 or 34 all the way out into Sweet Home. And you know, everybody has some needs around expansion, around safe bike lanes along the highways, around some of the stop lights or crossing lights. And then, of course, 101 has all sorts of substantial challenges for anybody who's not in a vehicle. And then 2 or 3 times a year, when the road washes out, for people who are also in vehicles. It's great. She came on board, and within a month, she's got subcommittees going, and people are excited, and city managers are attending, and it's a pretty cool project. But over the course of this next year, we are looking to continue to expand to realize both the regional vision around how we might be able to bring grants to bear to move some of the larger issues, but to also continue to support the smaller communities. So that is a new place in our footprint that I'm excited to announce. I know that I'm hopeful that you all have heard that unfortunately one of our 2 veteran services officers has resigned and decided to move on. Ian, just recently, within the last week or 2, has decided he wanted to move on to a new adventure. It was relatively sudden for us, but and he's been a great asset. That being said, I have a total confidence in Mark continuing the program, and we're posting the position right now to get it filled. Mark is really just such a incredible person to work with, and a gentle person. And I think he's very welcoming, and he'll keep us afloat for a while until we get somebody on board. And, but to that end, if you didn't see it in the report, we, over this last year, did 640 new claims for veterans in Benton County. And of those, 236 were awarded claims, bringing in about $1.4 million worth of deeply needed benefits to people who served our country and ended out with a disability that needed some compensation, or they deserved compensation for in some way. And that's just in this last year. And that's money also going back into the community, both to help people survive, but also that allows them to spend for their daily needs within the community and props up other people in the community. And then kind of lastly, the Corvallis Area Metropolitan Planning Organization has been working on a project for the Philomath Boulevard Highway 20 design study, and they're going to be hosting an open house on May 8th for people to give feedback about how that study is coming together there. And I think that's most of what I had for you, unless you had any questions.
One question, and I would invite Peggy to come back up to the table, talk a little bit about your ongoing discussions on collaboration between the 2 agencies that's been going on for a year or 2.
Thank you, Commissioner. I guess I'll start. I failed to mention again that our new kind of joint venture Corvallis office, but I think we've talked about that before. And if you've not been there, it's the old Keller Williams building on 9th Street. And so I know Commissioner Malone's been there. And so we would be happy to host at any point in time. It's a really great venue, and we're almost exactly half and half with Community Services Consortium, which has been a wonderful blending of staff. It's great when we and our senior leadership team can step away and just let staff do their work at how well that's going. But our partnership continues to evolve daily. And we are aligning policies, we're aligning software systems, we're aligning our phone system. We just aligned our, our email system.
Our
So both
address book.
our address book and the email system. So both organizations exist. If you go to the address book, you can see everybody on both sides of the organization. So I think it's been a fantastic evolution. I'll let Peggy.
Well, I don't know. Actually, it has been just great. And all those things that Ryan talked about are exciting. I think for me, one of the nicest things is that I genuinely like Ryan. Hopefully he feels the same about me and we get along well. And it's very easy to collaborate because we trust each other and we think similarly. And so we can look at an issue and say, is this the juncture for this to happen? Where will this lead us to? And we meet regularly, and Kayla, my deputy, has now joined us in that mix, and she's a wonderful addition because of her past experience with COG and working with the programs at COG and overseeing all the programs at CSC. So she's continuing on that path with staff and managers of the different programs from both sides, figuring out ways that they can blend better, that we can braid those resources better, that we can find better ways to do referrals and take advantage of some systems that are in place to reach out to one another's clients and say, hey, we see that you're not using these services and you might be eligible. Here's how you sign up, and really create pathways for clients to get the most holistic set of services and supports. And then I really am excited about the Corvallis office, and hopefully that creates a launching pad for future opportunities to co-locate. And I know I'm forgetting something, but what else? Anything else that we think?
Well, in the spirit of braiding so that we can serve better our consumers, we now have a single shared IT structure for both organizations and a single shared human resources structure. So instead of having two separate teams of 3 or 4 people, we now have one IT team of 8 and one HR team of 8. And that allows for redundant processes. It allows for consistency of policy interpretation. It allows for, the COGS HR director, Ryan Schulze, is off on paternity leave right now. And if we had not done this, I would have an HR shop of 2 people, one of whom would be a temp who's been there for 2 months. So we really would have been kind of paralyzed for 3 months. But in this spirit, we're aligning a lot of things. We're reducing some of our redundancies, so we're getting a greater service array. Now, we've talked about before, I want to make sure I'm clear on the record, this is not a money-saving venture. Both of us recognize that within our own administrative groups, we were insufficiently delivering what we needed to really be fully functioning. And with the combining of the groups, we are getting more service out of our IT department and our HR department. So this is not a staff reduction exercise. We don't intend to do that. One of the questions has come up, and that is what's next, right? Because it's working very, very well. And so the question has been, what's next? And I think our answer right now is there isn't a next at the moment. Other administrative functions are very, very complicated, and they're not ripe for the conversation. Each of these have happened kind of holistically and opportunistically. It was a result of some turnover that said, let's have the conversation again. And maybe now's the time, maybe it's not. And we have said on more than one occasion, it's not the time. And in these 2 instances, we said it was the time. And that seems to be working.
Absolutely. I think also that, and many of you have participated in this conversation, that from the outset, we've said this, both agencies are very complex. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of statutorily required advisory bodies, in addition to the governing boards that we have. And it takes a lot of time and thought to, as I've described it, take the pile of noodles on the table and pull each spaghetti strand out and look at it and say, okay, how does this touch everything else? And if we move this, what happens? And so that's what Ryan and I and Kayla are spending a lot of time talking about. Oh, I came to your all staff. Ryan was kind enough to invite me to his Kayla and I to his all staff. And so we talked about that partnership. And there was something that I was thinking is important, but it's escaped me for the moment. So we'll save it for a governing board meeting.
All right, thank you. I've been a little bit involved in the process, and it just seems like it's being thoughtful, and I think Ryan used the term opportunistic, and I think that's important. Instead of trying to force something where it round hole, square peg, need a bigger hammer kind of approach, that just looking at what you're doing. I mean, obviously same service areas, and really are some similarities. So I think this makes a lot of sense, and reminds me a little bit. I think about 3 years ago, we combined natural areas and parks and fairgrounds, which is now called events. And so we turned NAP into NAPE. And from the outset, it was clearly stated this was not a money-saving venture. It was to try to beef up two very small departments, so there is some redundancy, and somebody can take a vacation and not have everything stop. So kind of, and as far as I can tell, that's worked well, and in the county and your two organizations, I think appreciate. Well, nothing is immediately on the future to try to do any combining, but be continuing the conversation. So I appreciate the effort that's gone into it to get us to this point.
I remembered what it was. There is one next thing. There is a next thing. So as you all know, I'm retiring at the end of this calendar year. And the next thing is that both boards have appointed a subcommittee. Commissioner Augereau is on that committee to talk about what's next for the leadership of both organizations. What does that look like going forward? And what will the process for the recruitment look like? And this is the thing that I keep saying to my staff. I know that this may be alarming to you. There is no big secret plan. And that, maybe if there was a big secret plan, people would be like, aha, yes, we knew it. But the fact that we're taking the time to think this all through, and that great minds are at the table thinking it through. And by that, I mean not Ryan and I in our meetings, but in the subcommittee that will be talking about what's next for the leadership of both organizations. I think that's an important step. And it may be that the outcome is, well, we're just going to recruit for a CSC director and leave things as they are for the moment. Ryan and I have been at that juncture in multiple stages with finance directors, with IT directors, with HR directors. And I think that, that will be the next step, is looking at what that leadership looks like. And then that person or those people will continue on with this plan to combine or align or partner those organizations, whatever that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Sorry. Thank you. For the Stand By Me program, thank you for highlighting that. On your website, it talks about looking for partnerships, and there's a call to, have somebody from that program talk to other partners. And I'm just wondering, is that still something that is that still a target Okay.
Absolutely.
And then I wonder, have you ever reached out to like the chambers of commerce or the Rotary groups to maybe do a presentation?
So our manager over that program is Alicia Lucky, and if you've spent any time with her, you know she is really good about being out, shaking hands, and making sure people know what's going on. So yes, she absolutely has been in contact with chambers. I don't know how many of them have taken her up on the offer for a presentation there. But she also works with a lot of our partner agencies and Samaritan and Casa Latinos and a number of other organizations. And then she also has the benefit of supervising most of our other community services programs. And so they dovetail nicely when she's out talking about Meals on Wheels or the Senior Companion Program or the foster parent program. She rolls them all in. So
Okay. I was just thinking that it might fit nicely with like the Philomath Chamber of Commerce, their luncheons, for example.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate the update and the collaboration and increasingly close ties between the two organizations that share so many. You both use different terms, consumers or clients or community members, yeah, between you.
thank you, commissioners.
Okay, up next, we have Michael R. from Benton Soil and Water Conservation District. Welcome, Michael. And this is an annual report. Every year, we hear from both the Benton Soil and Water Conservation District and from Marys River Watershed Council about their work.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me today. So yeah, I'm Michael R. I'm the Natural Resource Conservation Program Manager with the Benton Soil and Water Conservation District. And this is the third year I've been doing this. It's the third year I've been working at Benton SWCD. And I've always just kind of come in to try to give a little bit of an update that's usually invasive species focused because we get some funds from the county, $5,000 a year to be specific, to deliver a few different, I guess, deliverables to some of the Benton County staff. So what we've done for our intergovernmental agreement with the county for the last several years has been pretty similar. We've kind of got a nice recipe that works of doing some outreach, doing some volunteer events, and I'll share a little bit about that. But I always like to add in a little bit of extra info when I come in, just because I kind of have the time to do it today, which is really great. So last year I talked a bit more about the district as a whole and highlighted very briefly kind of all of our programs. But this year, I felt like I would just dig in just a little deeper to the invasive species program in general. So really, when we look at the invasive species program at the Benton Soil and Water Conservation District, we kind of think of it in about 3 different sections or 3 different kind of forms. And one of them is our Benton Cooperative Weed Management Area, or the Benton CWMA. It's often abbreviated as that. And that's something where I serve as the coordinator of that group. I'll talk a little bit about that in the next slide. And I also coordinate the Willamette Mainstem Cooperative, which has some similarities to the CWMA, but definitely a little bit different. And then we just do a lot of general outreach and education about noxious weeds or invasive weeds or non-native weeds, which are all really kind of the same thing with just different names. So just a little bit about the Benton CWMA. Cooperative weed management areas exist all around the state. Some are more active than others. I'm excited that the Benton CWMA is typically statewide viewed as a fairly active CWMA, which is really great. And I kind of owe that to the partnerships that are in place with that. So for the cooperative weed management area, I guess skipping ahead a little bit on the slide I'm showing is we do meet twice in a year, sometimes more, but it's usually kind of twice a year to get together and share ideas and do some strategizing. But when we meet, we have a lot of different public agencies, nonprofits, land trusts, watershed councils, and other folks that'll come to the table to meet as the CWMA. So when we talk about public agencies, we're thinking about federal agencies like Natural Resources Conservation Service or Bureau of Land Management. We'll have staff come from state agencies like Oregon Department of Agriculture and the state parks. All of the watershed councils will show up, like Marys River, Lucky Mute, Long Tom, and Calapooya Watershed Council, and Greenbelt Land Trust is typically there too. Willamette River Keeper, lots of others. I just kind of gave that long laundry list of partners because it's also pretty applicable to the next slide too. But really the CWMA is meant to get together to think about what are the priority noxious weeds that we should be dealing with. What are the strategies on how to best to do it? Maybe there's new management strategies on the best way to get rid of a particular pest. And we'll get together and talk about those things and do some prioritization about how should we message which weeds are the big ones that landowners and homeowners and land managers should be really be thinking about. And we do have a volunteer event, the Let's Pull Together event coming up on May 18th, where we'll be at 4 different locations around the county to do some noxious weed removal. So another group that meets twice a year is the Willamette Mainstem Cooperative, and it's not an exact overlap of partners with the CWMA I was just talking about, but there are definitely several folks that come to both of these meetings. And the Willamette Mainstem Cooperative was created years ago to sort of serve almost like a watershed council for a 22-mile stretch of the Willamette River. So there's no effort here to cover the 187 miles of the Willamette, but we want to focus on more or less the Corvallis to Albany reach. And the part that Benton SWCD plays in this is not only coordination, but we do a lot of the hands-on invasive species management of aquatic weeds on that stretch of river. Some of the partners are working on the same kind of thing on different sites. Other partners might be doing larger scale fish restoration projects, which are really, really great. There's a lot of opportunity for just much better fish habitat in some areas of the Willamette River. But when I'm out there in the canoe a couple times, summer and July, probably about 4 times actually, I'm usually looking for yellow floating heart, which on the presentation here is that lily pad looking plant with the yellow flowers. And that's found in 6 locations between Peoria Boat Ramp and Tahkeena Landing. And we end up having contractors come back and treat that each year to get rid of it. And we're doing a pretty good job of not seeing that spread on our stretch of the river, which is cool. Ludwiggia is another one that's kind of like the cat's sort of out of the bag on that one. It's kind of everywhere. But we do have a few spots where with some maintenance treatments of that, we're able to keep a pretty intact native habitat instead of it going completely to a monoculture of Ludwiggia. So those are sorts of the things we're looking at. And we do some prioritization to figure out what our next steps are for other projects on the Willamette at each of our meetings. And then I just kind of wanted to show this slide for a minute. These are a bunch of noxious weeds that the land managers in the audience would recognize. You get ivy growing up a fence, spurge laurel. Everybody knows blackberry. We have false brome, shiny geranium, Italian arum. These are just like some of the frequent phone calls or emails we get are about these particular weeds here, but we get calls about 50 other weeds as well. And what I've noticed is ever since kind of COVID started to wind down and we got out and did more public meetings and things is that folks really do want to learn about noxious weeds. So when I go to give a talk about these invasives, it's like, we'll get 20, 30, and 40 people coming to meetings to hear me talk about Scotch broom and blackberry. And it's not because I'm an amazing speaker. It's just that it's really cool how people want to take care of these weeds in Benton County. So we really owe a lot to these homeowners, landowners, land managers, that are out there on the front lines doing the work. So, and really just your all's support of our program, I think really helps us get out and answer these sorts of questions about just the general things. But one of the things that's not really just your general everyday weed that we deal with a lot that I want to highlight anytime I have any kind of audience at all is the oblong spurge or Euphorbia oblongata. And there's all kinds of euphorbias out there. They're pretty yellow flowers that people have in their landscapes. But this one really has kind of escaped and become a high priority weed on the state level. So I just like to highlight it here and just show you, I think I'm not some of the people might not be able to see my pointer, but the bottom left photo that just looks like someone's side yard, that's where we find most of this oblong spurge because folks used to plant it before we realized how invasive it was. And now you can't sell it in Oregon anymore. But then the next one's kind of like, so anyway, I guess probably 30 of our known sites out of the 40 that we manage are just kind of pulling a few little straggling weeds in people's yards. But then when you get out around Crescent Valley and up onto Vineyard Mountain, and even out near Philomath now too, we're getting some bigger sites where we're actually having contractors come out and do some herbicide treatments to try to get rid of oblong spurge. I think it's a real threat to move into our oak woodlands. And that's one of the reasons why I really kind of dedicate time to it. Also, we can get grant funds from the Oregon State Weed Board to pay for some of our time to work on this one, which is nice. So that's a long, lengthy intro kind of, but thanks for letting me share all of that information. Now I'll talk a little bit about the intergovernmental agreement that we have with the county. And for years, we've been kind of showing the same sort of slide here about what we do with the funds that you give us each year. And we, for one, want to come in and talk with the road crew and highlight different high priority weeds that they can be looking for when they go out to do their work. And these are pretty fun events. I literally show up at these meetings and just give about a 5 to 10 minute presentation, and I kind of get out of their way and let them get on with their day. But I really am thankful I get to come in and talk about those weeds. Then we do a volunteer weed pool. We aim to do 3 of them every biennium. I'll show a slide about that. And then that sharing plant information is a lot of what I've just already talked about in this presentation. But I will highlight that sometimes the road crew might have conversations with landowners that are particularly concerned about certain noxious weeds, or maybe there's somebody who doesn't want to have any spray on their property. So we're thinking about alternative methods, because the road crew will do spray work, for a lot of the weeds, but sometimes a person doesn't want any spray. So I might come in and do a site visit jointly with the roads crew to sort of talk about what are some of the strategies we might use instead. This year, when I talked with the crew about specific weeds, we covered knap weeds, and those are really problematic in the roadside drainages because they really kind of fill in the space and they don't let the water flow off of the road and out of the area as quickly. Orange hawkweed at the moment does not exist in Benton County, but that's actually the exact kind of weed I want to talk to them about because they might be the people that see it first, on these disturbed kind of roadside edges. Oblong spurge, which I already shared about with you. I talked with them about that in the spring last year. And then puncture vine, we have in a few locations. So I covered that one. And then I try to mix it up and not talk about the same weeds every year. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to just kind of have a conversation about blackberry, even though everybody kind of knows about blackberry? It would be cool to just see kind of what they're doing, with that. So this event on April 28th of 2023, we had 10 OSU students come out to do some knapweed pulling. We're going to repeat the exact event this Friday with more OSU volunteers. But the concept of the SMA weed pool, SMA stands for Special Management Area. And I know a lot of people in the room are really well versed in kind of what that is. But basically, if you're not in the background of that top left photo, there's a big piece of property across the road, and that's Lupin Meadows, which is an area that is owned by Greenbelt Land Trust, and it has endangered plants and then endangered butterflies that use those plants. So we don't want to just be coming through this area using herbicides because we're worried about drift. And so what we've been able to do is maintain the knapweed there by having volunteers come out and dig it. And it was cool because the Greenbelt Land Trust gave the students a tour of that preserve for the last hour of our volunteer event last year. I think that's actually my last slide. And so I can answer questions if you have any, but that's kind of a little run through of our last year of invasive species action in Benton County.
Well, Michael, I appreciate the organizing the volunteers and different groups. I mean, paid staff can do so much, but if you multiply the efforts of people that might be better at identifying, especially the newer noxious weeds, I think that's a great way to involve and educate people and hopefully get out on a sunny day and have some fun knocking out some weeds.
Yeah, and I would love to just see the CWMA kind of expand more and more to where we could have even more of those volunteer events. And we want to do more of these kind of weed watcher workshops too, where we actually highlight those potential new invaders that would come in. So it's just amazing the whole suite of different presentations you can give about invasive species. So trying to do more and more of that.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I think that it's fun to see how well this partnership between Benton Soil and Water and our Public Works Department has matured. And the fact that you go out on site visits to talk to landowners with our staff, that's great. I like seeing this kind of collaboration with our local community-based organizations and governmental organizations. So thank you.
Yeah, and I have a lot of respect for that roads crew because they do a really great job of the interactions with those neighbors and property owners for sure too. So it's fun. I always learn a lot on those visits.
Thank you. Okay, up next, we have a broadband update, and we have Rachel Matic-Hughes and Joseph Brunel. And I think both of you are virtual, correct, Rachel?
Yes, we are both virtual. I'm sorry about that. I was hoping to be there in person today.
Well, welcome. And I was restraining myself from asking broadband questions when Ryan was here earlier because I knew the experts were coming.
Oh, great. Well, hey, it's commissioners, it's really great to be here today. These quarterly updates are part of what we're doing for each of the counties within our broadband action team, which covers Lynn, Benton, Lincoln, and Lane counties. There has been, I'm going to give you kind of a high level update on what's been going at the state and federal level. Joe will then talk to you about all of the work that he's been doing leading the broadband action team on a monthly basis. And then we'll talk a little bit about what we think the roadmap is for our region moving forward. And we're happy to answer any questions that you may have along the way. So just feel free to interrupt me. So there's a lot going on right now in terms of funding. So we have 3 funding programs, kind of, well, 4 actually, if you count the federal level, but 3 at the state level going on. So the Broadband Technical Assistance Program was meant to help support groups like the Broadband Action Teams, conducting feasibility studies, doing engineering plans with ISPs, which are internet service providers. There was a total of $4.4 million in requests we did submit on behalf of our region for a grant application. Unfortunately, the broadband office only had $1.5 million appropriated for this first round of funding. And our region was not selected to move forward. Again, $4.4 million in requests and $1.5 million available made it very difficult. We have been advocating with the broadband office to do what they can to release more of those funds. And there is potential for more of those funds to be released during the potential e-board meeting in May. And I know that's a lot of potentials, but the e-board meeting is a little bit hand wavy about whether you can get on the agenda, et cetera, or not. Right now and soon to be closing is the Broadband Deployment Program, which is the first round of infrastructure funding through the state. That is ARPA funded. It's $157 million. And we do know that both Lyrica and Pioneer are looking to apply for that in Benton County. And then the big one that's coming up, which is $688 million, is what we call the BEAD program, or the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. So that is the biggest chunk of funding that that this is the generational funding that everyone has been talking about. So that is a long process. There's Joe could talk a little bit more about what's involved in the application for it. And then the other piece that's going on right now is Reconnect, which is a federal funding opportunity up to $25 million. We do believe that there's a potential for Pioneer to be submitting for a Reconnect grant fund in the region. And then we do know that we're supporting Lyrica to help apply for one, but that is in Lynn County. Many of you may have heard about in the past couple of years the Affordable Connectivity Plan, which is the ACP. Unfortunately, so we have in Oregon, we have about 240,000 households who are enrolled in this program, and it provides $30 a month of support for internet connectivity. And unfortunately, Congress did not elect to refund this program, and it ended in April. So many of the internet service providers around the country and in our state and in our region are working to figure out like affordable plans that people can still plug into, but that was a major blow to digital equity and inclusion from an affordability standpoint. In February, we are one of the founding members that helped to launch the Oregon Broadband Equity Coalition, or OBEC. We are hosting monthly calls. It's being led by Oregon State University, Link Oregon, and a couple of others. And if you're interested in participating in that, let me know and I can definitely get you on the emailing list. I'm going to turn it over to Joe really quickly to talk about what's been going on at our monthly broadband action team meetings, and then we'll talk a little bit about what things are going to look like moving forward. Joe.
All right. Thank you, Rachel, and good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear me okay. We have been meeting with the broadband action team for the region, so all 4 counties monthly. And as you just heard from Rachel, there is a lot going on. And it's every month our agenda and the notes get longer and longer. So anyone who has attended any of those meetings has been privy to all of that conversation. What we've been doing every month is making sure that all of the interested parties, all of the folks who are broadband champions who are working so hard in the region have access to all of the information that they need at their fingertips. And so when we have a meeting with the members of the constituents there in Benton County and the other 3 counties, we always make sure that in the agenda there are hyperlinks so that people don't have to hunt and look for all the information. It's right there at their fingertips so that they can keep up. And I do this full time. And it's hard. Things are moving so fast that it is hard to keep up. So what we've been focusing on the last few months in particular have been BTAP, so the Broadband Technical Assistance Program that Rachel alluded to. And there is real hope now, I think, that we'll actually get on the agenda with the e-board and perhaps see additional funding. And when she talked about additional funding, there is funding in the Oregon State Broadband Fund that is allocated specifically for tasks like the BTAP program. So the legislature only allocated $1.5 million, but there are additional funds available today that come from the State Universal Service Fund through the PUC, the Public Utility Commission, to feed that fund, that broadband fund. So we are hopeful that additional technical assistance funding will flow into the state through that e-board action. And if you know anybody who's on the e-board, certainly advocate to get that on the agenda, as we have been doing. We also have been keeping people in the loop on the BDP program, this ARPA fund. The dollars actually were announced that they were coming to the state about 4 years ago. And it's taken all of this time to actually get the rules in place for the broadband deployment program. So it was announced the window for applications was opened the end of last month, and it's going to close Thursday at 5 p.m. for applications. So we only had 30 days as a state to respond to this grant opportunity. And so people have been working really long hours to try and take advantage of the grant application. Interestingly enough, the BDP program does not require a match. You get extra points for a match, but it doesn't require a match. So some of these really hard to solve problems where it's just so expensive to get out there, this BDP application is really well suited for that. The BEAD program, which is coming up next, which Rachel talked about, it requires a 25% minimum match. And so it's going to be a heavier lift for people to make a business case to build infrastructure into some of the really remote areas of our county. Digital equity is an area that we're just now starting to really see movement on at the state level. The federal funding for digital equity, the first round of that was just announced. And the state is getting $9.9 million, I believe. Yes, $9.9 million from the NTIA. And the NTIA is the president's telecommunications group. Okay, so that's the NTIA, the different from the FCC or the USDA, where a lot of these funds flow for rural areas. So we've been keeping people informed with that, helping with advocacy, like through the ACP program, where the Affordable Connectivity Program, we're advocating for a solution both at the federal level still, even though Congress failed to act. There is opportunity to perhaps reform the Federal Universal Service Fund to actually include broadband instead of just being focused on telephone service. And so we're advocating for that there's a work group that is actually being started on the ACP that is going to explore options for a state solution. And it may be that that's where things have to happen to solve this affordability issue at the state level. And so we're advocating for that and staying involved in that, helping to make sure that everybody who attends the Broadband Action Team meetings is fully equipped. And so happy, we always have a round table too. So I will comment, this Broadband Action Team, and we facilitate multiple Broadband Action Teams around the state. This Broadband Action Team, the Lynn, Lincoln, Benton, Lane County Broadband Action Team, it has more involvement from internet service providers than any of the other broadband action teams that we facilitate. So you have really good participation. You have partners in the area who want to solve problems and work with you, and that is huge. So I congratulate you on taking a leadership role in making sure that this forum is available for folks to get together and then collaborate and meet and figure out ways to solve these really difficult to solve problems. So good for you, and congratulations on that. The last thing is, we always, when the legislature is in session, we always are informing on what's going on in the legislature. So if there's a need for advocacy or intervention, then you have the opportunity, and the people who are involved in the Broadband Action Team have the opportunity to be involved in that. And we always make recommendations too. Sometimes well, actually, so far, you've always taken our recommendations, and we hope that our recommendations are well received in the future as well. But thankfully, legislative session's over with. We don't have to worry about that for a little while. And I know Rachel is going to talk a little bit about the roadmap. I've got the roadmap up in front of me as well, so I can help with that. And then any questions at the end, happy to answer them. Rachel.
Thank you. And we'll additionally send this out to you. There was an additional document that I did not include in your original packet. It was sent out a while ago to members in Benton County. But essentially, it's kind of like how we see things moving forward and what's the best option for the region. Obviously, we're going to help the region stay informed about current planned state and federal legislation and funding. We are working with Oregon State University. They are rolling out their extension services are rolling out a digital equity kind of plan. They're piloting that down in Lane County, actually in Florence. And we're kind of trying to figure out how we can roll that out here as well in the region. We'll continue to hold our monthly stakeholder meetings. And then reviewing your Rapids design study recommendations as well. We'll continue to facilitate conversations with your local internet service providers on issues around the Affordable Connectivity Program. And then, what are they going to do to kind of move that forward as well, now that that subsidy is no longer in place? One piece that I think counties should be involved in, and we can facilitate a meeting around this or several meetings, is looking at city and county regulations and permitting processes that have the potential to slow down infrastructure rollout once money is secured. And so this is where facilitating conversations between city and counties and the internet service providers is a step that we think that at least Benton County should take next. And then we'll continue to figure out how we can best position the county and the internet service providers for BEAD funding as well. So that is kind of the high level of what we have moving forward. We're contracted with you guys through the end of this year. And we are really excited to continue this work. The next 2 to 3 years are really going to be important in terms of funding and infrastructure rollout and digital equity and inclusion work. So thank you. We're happy to answer your questions.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate all of your support. And I know Adam Lortz is not available. He's away, but he's been working with you as well. And I appreciate having your assistance because of the alphabet soup that is broadband assistance. And as all of those grant opportunities were emerging, it was extremely confusing to figure out what was appropriate for what. I'm also thrilled to hear that we have such great ISP participation in the Broadband Action Team meetings. I know when I was attending those regularly, they were just starting to show up, especially from Lane County. They were early participants. So that's fantastic too, because they're the must-have participants at the table. I do have a question. I know that Adam reached out to you earlier but we got a question from a constituent that's up on Vineyard Mountain as to whether or not they are in any of these areas where there's improvement of service envisioned. His question, I think, might actually have more relationship to the contesting of categorization of service areas. And I think we passed that window, right? I just don't know how to answer this particular constituent at this time.
So, and Rachel, if I could step in on this one, the challenge process for the BEAD map, so that challenge process just opened, and so there is there's an FCC map, and then there's a state map. The state map draws from the FCC map. So if he is this particular citizen is miscategorized as served when he should be unserved, so there's not service available, or the service is less than what the minimum standard is, then this citizen could challenge that on the FCC map, and also in the challenge process now through the state, which will be the results of the challenge process at the state level will determine what locations are considered eligible for funding for BEAD. So it's really important that we're looking at, and I know service providers are looking at it to make sure that it's accurate right now. I think there probably are a few bad players out there who have overstated their coverage, but I'm not aware of any in your area. So if there's a mistake there, it's probably literally just a mistake, and we just need to get that corrected. But for the goal of the BEAD program is to serve every unserved location in Oregon first. And so if this an unserved would be less than 25 megabits download per second download, and less than 3 megabits per second upload speed. So anything that's less than that is considered unserved, or anyone who is only served with fixed wireless or cellular wireless. So it's not a terrestrial connection or a licensed wireless connection. So most of the fixed wireless stuff that's out there is unlicensed spectrum. So it's a radio frequency that where the carrier who's providing that service doesn't own the license to use that frequency alone. And so making sure that location is properly labeled on the map is going to be key to making sure that then that location is addressed through the funding that's coming down the pike. Yeah. Now, we can certainly help with that. So, we responded to Adam, if you'll give us the address or tell us where, we'll actually look on the map and see what the map says, and, and help with that. So we can always facilitate
And I think
Okay.
also what we can do, Commissioner, is work on a quick cheat sheet for folks who are interested, that if you guys are contacted by constituents, it's like, hey, first check to see if your location has been reported as being served. Here's how you do that. And then the second piece is, and I'd like to go back and talk to our internet service providers about this first, but you know, internet service providers keep their build out plans close to the chest because of competition, right? So let us talk to the internet service providers as well and find out what is the best method for individual residences to find out when or if internet is planned in their neighborhood and to their location. So we'll go back and talk with our partners and create a really quick one pager that has the information about the map and also how to check and see when you might be getting service. We'll figure out what the best solution is, but something that you can really easily send out.
Thank you. So in this particular case, I will let this constituent know that that the challenge period has just begun and that we're developing a process for constituents to check to see exactly where they stand.
That sounds great.
And
And-
Commissioner, the link to the challenge process website was in the agenda that I sent out for the April 18th meeting. So
Okay.
if you need me to send that to you, I can, or if you've already got it.
We'll put it all in one place for you.
Yeah.
Okay,
There
and
you
I do have that email.
Okay, great.
Okay, I will respond to the constituent and thank you very much. I think that one-page checklist will be extremely helpful.
Great.
Remind me how long the challenge period lasts?
It's 30 days.
Oh, it's short. Okay. Okay.
But even if, so the challenge period is very short, and we have taken issue with the short timelines, unfortunately, that the Oregon Broadband Office has given us. Some of those are flexible, some of them are not, depending on the federal regulations. It doesn't give a lot of time, especially for people in rural communities to respond, which is unfortunate. However, you know, community members who are like, hey, when is internet coming to my neighborhood, who are more interested in that, can still have a process that we'll outline and they can follow up on that because that is really important. So.
Okay, I think that the other would be very helpful. The other thing that would be really helpful is to engage our public information officer. And maybe we can also put this information out more broadly to our newsletter list, because I suspect that this particular constituent is far from alone in terms of wondering what's going on.
Absolutely. And anytime you have other questions that may arise, you know, feel free to always reach out to us directly. We're here anytime.
Certainly.
Okay, I had a question. You mentioned the e-board lobbying for BTAP. Could you, in the information that you're sending, would you make sure that's included? Just a suggestion on what we're asking for. If I understood it correctly, the money's there. It's just, it hasn't been, for whatever reason, hasn't been allocated.
Correct. Yes, we can definitely put that in our update and send that out to you.
Yeah, we can do like a draft blurb that you could then put into an email or a formal letter to your legislative folks, and that would make it easy on you. So we can do that. Sure. I got a note. I took a note.
You said the magic words, Joe, make it easy on us.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. That's what we're here for, right?
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Rachel or Joe?
You guys are pretty easy.
Well, if you haven't already done it, maybe have a one pager or a half pager translating acronyms into what program, and it was helpful. Okay, these are state programs, and then this is the federal program, and
Yes.
because since they all start with B, it gets a little confusing after the fifth or sixth one.
Yeah, absolutely. And there should be in your packet, there's an overview of all of those programs with their full names and their acronyms, because it is acronym soup. Absolutely.
It is.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you very much, commissioners.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Bye.
We'll see you next time.
That's the plan.
Okay. I wouldn't mind a 5-minute break if that's okay with you. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back with item 4.1. Okay, we are ready to begin again, and we will take up item 4.1, approval of Bureau of Justice Assistance Federal Grant for the Adult Drug Treatment Court Program. And we have with us Rick Krager, Assistant County Administrator, and Jeremy Martin from Financial Services. And Judge Donahue could not make it at this time. Too early in the day.
I think he had trials today, is my understanding.
Yeah. Because he's working. Because he's working. Yeah, not because he's a slouch. No.
Thank you, commissioners. Appreciate it. Good to see you all. So we are here today to ask approval from the Board of Commissioners to approve or to give us permission to apply for a federal grant. This is a grant that I know that we have updated you on in previous conversations with the judge attending. So this will be from the Bureau of Justice Administration, BJA, better known. But this is, they're offering currently the Adult Drug Treatment Court Grant, which is for about $900,000. It's specifically targeted for as a startup. So again, not to belabor the history, but you all know we have, so our program was suspended. So we're looking at this from the standpoint of restarting with a new concept of a new service provider. We have been doing a lot of work over the last several months, engaging with service provider out of Lane County, who's been extremely helpful in terms of providing us a lot of estimates and very eye-opening, I would say, as it relates to their efficiency in doing that work. It was very amazing to see what they provided and some of the cost information. So very impressed with what I've seen so far. The grant itself, again, like I said, is $900,000. It does have a match requirement. I want to highlight that. We did talk about that last time, but we would be able to meet that requirement through actually state dollars. There has been an approval of a coordinator position for Benton County with state dollars. That will be the individual that is the programmatic work. And I think that's a key piece for us here in the county. As you recall, in the past, I think there's been sort of a balance of providing the not only the behavioral health services, but the program management and the financial. We can deal with the financial stuff. It's more the programmatic stuff that we've always been concerned. So having that individual in place would be great. We got more than enough matches. Jeremy can probably attest to. We've been able to also leverage the work of the policy committee and many of the other folks that are non-county employees. So we have no problem in terms of covering the match. The dollars themselves will, again, really, as to no surprise to you, be focused on the treatment side. Initially, we also have been somewhat strategic in this because to make this a sustainable program, it's going to be relying on the ongoing sustainability grant that you've heard the judge talk about that would come through CJC. So this is not the resource that would carry on forever and make this as a sustainable program, but it does provide us with that 4-year window essentially to kind of get it back to that place of running. So Jeremy has been great in terms of being strategic on how to plan that all out so that we have the dollars that we need, at least in the first year or so, to be able to get to that point of applying for the CJC grant. I also should let you know, CFM has been engaged in this. We've been leveraging our federal partner. They are doing all of the application work for us. So it's nice to be leveraging that. Michael Skipper, as always, is very helpful. And him and Jeremy both have been a great partner in terms of helping facilitate all of the information that's been moving forward. From a timeline standpoint, again, there's never any way to know exactly when, but ideally, if everything went well, this would be starting up, awarded, and given to the recipient by October 1 of 2024, which means we would likely hear something in the summer. There's no guarantees, of course, of that. One of the challenges that we have that I mentioned last time was in relation to facility space. We are trying to leverage the current leased building that is now actually empty because of the transition of our children and family services to the new building. So we are looking at that as an option. Of course, once the crisis center opens, we will also be shifting staff into the crisis center from the current Humphrey Hoyer building. And that was the old residing place of the drug treatment court. So, there's a little bit of a timing balance that we're doing all of this. But one of the things you were very clear with me last fall was, as we move forward, is how do we make this a viable program, but not have any the additional costs that we've seen in the past on the county. And I can assure you, we've done that so far, I think very well. Again, it's all going to be very dependent on having that efficient provider in place once we are notified if we are successful in the award. I want to just personally thank you, Jeremy. He's jumped right in. He's, as you know, relatively new to the grant manager role, but he's actually, the vision of having a grant manager that's not only the person dealing with the day-to-day reporting and all that, he is jumping into the programmatic aspects. And that is such a great partner for me, or for my old position, especially to really help support a lot of these efforts. And so I just really appreciate everything he's done. And I guess I would just invite, if Jeremy, is there anything I might have missed or anything you want to add to this?
Covered very well.
All right, with that, I know the motion is there to ask your approval to allow us to apply for this $900,000 grant. Thanks. Answering questions you have.
So it's 900,000 over 4 years.
Correct. That's the federal portion of it.
Great. And it's wonderful to have CFM to help navigate the federal portal. Those things can be beastly. Are there any other questions from my fellow commissioners about this proposal? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Well, just trying to figure out the financing and kind of understand this grant and the state matching grant, help get the program started. And then would you go over again what's the vision for the future as far as ongoing funding?
So yeah, I'll talk, I've always loved to talk numbers, of course, but I'll kind of give you just sort of a bit of a recap. When we go through and we look at all of the specific types cost associated with a program over the course of 4 years, we're looking right now based on the most recent estimate, and this of course could still change before application goes in. We're looking at about $2.9 million for all costs associated. That includes everything, the cost of the state coordinator. So I don't want to blow you guys away in terms of concerns, but that's what the total cost would be. So what we have done is strategically looked at it as, okay, what are the things that, this federal grant can pay for, but eventually what happens is the CJC grant will kick in. Now, again, there's always that risk. What if the CJC grant, is not funded, is not supported? And then of course we've got bigger problems in terms of being able to continue a viable program. But that's what the total cost for a 4-year period is that we're estimating that would go in. The $900,000, think of it as more of especially the seed dollars up front until the long-term sustainable funding kicks in.
Thank you.
I would like to add that is a large number, but our in-kind contribution is almost 1.6 million. And so the actual program cost is going to be minus the in-kind gesture. And so our raw costs are going to be a lot less than the 2.9, because you see that number and you're like, whoa, that's a lot of money.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. That's an excellent point, and he's absolutely correct. And then again, as I said before, we're very well leveraged in terms of our in-kind contribution.
Well, I'll move to, in coordination with the Oregon Judicial Department, apply for a $900,000 grant from the Bureau of Justice Administration to support the planning and continuation of the adult drug court program in Benton County.
Second.
All in favor, please signify with an aye.
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 Aye. Little flavor there.
Yum.
Okay, thank you. Much appreciated. And I greatly appreciate the time that you all took to work with Presiding Judge Donahue to put together a feasible plan. to resurrect this program. And I think it's going to be, once again, a key portion of our process for helping people that struggling with severe addiction issues and behavioral health problems.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Ogeron. And as you said, mentioned Judge Donahue, I think it's appropriate to say he's been great to work with. I mean, he has done incredible amounts of work working at night and writing abstracts and application stuff. So he's been very responsive and very helpful in this. And I know he's extremely committed.
Yes, he is. It's near and dear to him. Thank you. Okay, up next is our information sharing portion of the agenda, and call on my colleagues to begin. Is there any information you'd like to share at this time? And for anyone listening, that typically we try to coordinate schedules when we go to various events and make sure that we have good coverage of community events and also keep each other updated in terms of what we've been doing in terms of constituent meetings, et cetera. Commissioner Wise?
Sure. I have a couple things. In my role as the chair of LOAC, the Local Officials Advisory Committee, I am invited to an informal lunch in Lebanon on Thursday, and it looks like, and that's with the director of the DLCD and the LCDC. It looks like that overlaps with the first part of the CSC governing board meeting that day. But so I will have to be late to that meeting, it looks like.
Okay. Can you remind me which date that is?
The 25th.
Okay.
In 2 days. And yeah, I have a busy day that day because I also have the CWED executive board meeting all stacked up together. And I will just mention too that Friday, the 26th, the LCDC is having their leadership roundup or roundtable meeting. So if anyone has any feedback on land use issues or anything of the sort, please feel free to share them with me and I will pass those along.
Thank you.
And then I have a quick question and a request. Did any of the commissioners receive a request to speak with the Statesman Journal?
Not I.
I did not either. So we got shared with us a link to an article at the Statesman Journal in which it states that none of the commissioners responded to request for an interview or information. So if we...
I've never had any contact with the Statesman Journal.
Nor have I. It looks like the journalist was Tracy. My computer just died. Tracy something. Anyway, I just wonder if we could check into if maybe staff got a phone call or if there was an email sent to maybe the PIO or something, just to double check that we didn't miss anything.
Sure. I'm just looking back at Corey Grogan, who's our PIO officer, and he's shaking his head no. But we can certainly do some follow-up and reach out to the journalist and see what happened.
That would be great.
But it is good to be on record that no commissioner was contacted either personally or through the Board of Commissioners office. And I'm also looking back at Maura, and we keep track of every phone call that comes in as well. So,
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Malone.
Yeah. Let's see. I think I mentioned this last week, but Jesse Ott and Sherry Brubaker from Representative Hoyle's office and I met at Jackson Frazier wetlands and had a tour there. We made a request from Representative Hoyle's office for $800,000 for the boardwalk replacement project. And my thought was instead of just having something on paper describing the project, try to make it more real. It's very instructive as you're driving in, all the apartments and houses that you go by, and then there's a line and you're into a natural area. And so it's in some ways surrounded by quite a few people. I think area qualifies as low income, so it checks that box. So and this is for the request for the 25 fiscal year appropriations. And so, and Representative Hoyle requested one project for her to concentrate on, and she's done a great job as a freshman legislator in the minority, getting things done, whether it's passing bills or getting, as she likes to say, returning the money that we've sent to DC, returning some of it back home to for projects that we've identified as our priorities. Week and a half ago, Sunday, we all got to meet with Senator Merkley at a pre-town hall meeting with local electeds, and I really appreciate the time and effort that somebody that's and both our senators' goal is to have a town hall in every county every year, and knowing how precious their time is. And I think Senator Merkley said something, our two senators are the only ones in the country that do this kind of access. You don't have to pay money to go to a fundraiser to see your senator. And so, and once again, got to talk about a couple of our priority projects for the next appropriation cycle. Last week, I'm a liaison to the 911 board, and going along fairly well. We passed the bond several years ago to have a more robust both equipment and personnel, and it's been a real challenge. We seem to be stuck at about 16 911 operators. Were authorized, I think, up to 24, and it's just a tough position to fill, and we're not the only ones in that situation. So there's anytime there's a shortage of people, there's kind of a scramble, and other agencies making deals, and so it's just an ongoing challenge. A week and a half ago, I was at the Alerica office in Philomath at a broadband meeting. So today's session fit right in with that, and like Rachel Matthews was mentioning this morning, or maybe it was Joe, talking about the good participation of the local ISP providers. And I think wasn't mentioned this morning, but Pioneer Telephone has got, I think, two $25 million grants to fill in some of the gaps. in service areas. So like they said, some of these programs have been talked about for several years, but some of the funding is finally hitting our area, which is pretty exciting. And unless I think of something else, that's what I have.
Thank you very much. I had a handful of things that I participated in over the last week and a half or so. One of them was I had the good fortune to attend the House Bill 4123 Summit on the pilot program for coordinated homelessness response, and attended that alongside April and Rebecca Taylor, and Rachel also was able to attend for part of that. It was really inspiring to hear from all of the other homelessness response initiatives in the other 7 pilot areas, and particularly to learn from them. Everyone's doing things a little bit differently, has some innovations that we can pick up on, or some tools that they're creating that will be useful for us. And the Mid-Columbia folks were particularly impressive. On a more lighthearted note, everyone's calling their regional group by a different name, but several of them are using the Coordinated Homelessness Response Office moniker, or CHRO. And here we interpret it as CROW, but there was a little bit of a question: should it be CROW or should it be churro? And so, it all depends on what language you're coming from and what that acronym looks like. So that generated some laughter and joking throughout the day. Anyway, it was a good day. Learned a lot. I also attended the Intercommunity Health Plans Board meeting last week. They are, among other things, updating their processes for their DST grant program. And they are looking to systematize it a little bit more. And I spoke to the fact at that board meeting, as did a couple of the consumers that are present on that board, to make sure to not lose the flexibility and the ability of community-based organizations to really be collaborative and to co-create. So, but there are some good reasons to create more guidelines and structures too. So it was an interesting discussion. The other meeting that I had last week was that I sat in with former community development staffer Chris Bentley and our community development director on a discussion about our community advisory, citizens advisory committees. Given that ALSI is recreating their Citizens Advisory Committee at this time. And it was wonderful to hear from Chris Bentley, because she had a long history with the various Citizens Advisory Committees, about how she had supported them, what her role was, how much time she spent on it, just to get a sense for how we can best revitalize those important committees based in community, elected by community, that serve as the community input vehicle in a systematic way as we roll forward with updating our comprehensive plan and any kind of planning that is focused on a particular area. So looking forward, I am going to go to the Jackson Street Youth Services annual fundraiser, Youth Rising, this Thursday evening. That is a fun event. I've been attending it for several years now. I will also probably sit in on a demonstration of a software platform called Zone Haven that's used for emergency evacuation. The City of Corvallis is doing a demo next Tuesday night, and I want to learn a little bit more. We've also subscribed to it, but I think the City of Corvallis at this point is a little further along, and I'm curious to see how it rolls out. That's it from me. Anything from County Administrator McEnany?
I do, and I'm actually asked Rick Krager to stick around as well. We have some nice events coming up for our employees coming up as well. We're doing a breakfast, as well as I'll be doing a tour with Public Works next week. And then I really want to just emphasize, because we wanted to have a little time to talk about the diversion program, since we do have a few updates, right?
Thanks, Rachel. Commissioners, I just thought it'd be appropriate to give you a quick update on House Bill 4002, which is the Behavioral Health Deflection Program. I know you all have seen a lot of a variety of emails and correspondences, information regarding this. And I think, as you all know, obviously with some legislation, there's always timing that is put into there that state agencies have to meet requirements by getting funding out by a certain period of time. Yet there's still the need to actually grow a program and actually develop that. And I think that's, in my opinion, the state agency is doing a great job of trying to figure out how to meet the requirements of getting 50% of the resources out to counties within a certain period of time, but yet still allow time to actually do the planning and work. And so we are on an extreme fast track. The application, if you will, is due today on the 23rd. It's a very short application. I can assure all of you that it is very conceptual. That's been emphasized, that they just want to know that counties are actually moving forward. They have ideas. I have spent time with the sheriff and our behavioral health director last week, kind of going through some concepts. I've also pulled in April and health department in terms of some ideas on how we might braid and weave some resources in together on this. I think I would just share from a conceptual standpoint, we've been talking a lot about how we could really maybe leverage the crisis center going forward in this, particularly at a point of entry. But I think also, as I'm sure you're aware, is the need for robust services around substance use is going to be certainly something that we have to build into this as well. And so those are kind of just conceptual ideas. Obviously, we are also required by the law to have a program coordinator. And so we've kind of brainstormed some ideas on maybe how we could leverage some additional positions we already have, because this wouldn't necessarily be initially a full-time job, at least from the coordination standpoint. I do want to say that the district attorney wasn't able to make our meeting last week. He was out of town. So we are still continuing to work with him and Will. The idea would be that there is a symposium on the 9th that's really supposed to give us more ideas about best practices and information for us as counties to plan. And then I see convening we'll call it a bit of a stakeholders group. There are certain requirements of people that need to be on there, but how we really come together as a community to think what is the best way to use these resources and what other resources do we kind of pull into it to make this a successful program. So just thought I wanted to, just give you a quick update on that. That'll go in today. We'll release 50% of the resources. And obviously there'll be more to come presenting to you about the specifics.
And have you, in your preliminary discussions, been looking at any of the Bureau of Justice Assistance grants or some of the other federal grants that are available? Yeah. I've just been cautioned by some of our federal colleagues that some of those might not be available in the next federal fiscal year. And therefore, if we are interested, we should jump on them now.
Yeah. Haven't quite got that far yet. We have talked about a variety of different resources that we should look and work towards achieving, but really wanted to make sure that we had all the right people on the table. Yes. In terms of thinking that through. But yes, that's been sort of our preliminary comment.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you.
We didn't want to lock into anything quite yet until we had time.
Other questions? Okay, thank you. Any other updates?
I've forgot when I mentioned Jesse Ott earlier, we had a combined Fair Board and Fair Foundation meeting a week ago Monday, and just I think generally very positive response to the change in leadership, that people have a lot of confidence in Jesse Ott and are glad he's getting the opportunity to show what he can do. The other thing, I participate in the Rough Tough group, Road User Task Force. I can't remember all that. It's to examine options for trying to fix ODOT's budget, especially on maintenance. And the the gas tax has been declining as cars get better mileage and hasn't kept up with the inflation that the ODOT's budget is not sustainable. And so this group is meeting to try to examine some alternatives, and there really aren't a lot. One of them is like the big trucks do is road user mileage tax in lieu of the gas tax. And the other one you've probably heard about is tolling, especially in the Portland metro area, which is not politically very popular. So, but anyway, stay tuned on that. There's a obvious problem, but not a obvious solution.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been following some of that passively. It's a challenging problem. I wanted to follow up as an announcement, I guess, just on the fact that Rachel mentioned the Benton Breakfast, and that is on May 9th, 7:30 to 9. And that all staff breakfast tends to be a fun event. But unfortunately, Commissioner Wise and I will both miss at least part of it due to previous commitments. So I'm hopeful to be there for at least the first half, but looking forward to it. Okay. Is there any other business before the board? Then we are adjourned.